Wow, today was more on the boring side. We're gonna have Brandon Michelot coming to the stand. She's gonna be doing a continuation of yesterday. Mario Gallucci, I believe, is still going to be crossing her. And then we're gonna have a doctor that did see Corey, and the doctor is gonna give more clarification on Corey's status before he was dropped off to the father and what she thought should happen with Corey after she examined him. And also there was a teacher. We're not going to include the teacher because it really didn't matter. It was just, oh, is Corey well dressed? Was he safe? Was he smart? That type of stuff. What type of boy Corey was. I think most of that stuff is irrelevant. We need to get to the hard facts. Let's jump in to day 2. And if it's your first time here, please consider liking the video and subscribing. We're going to be covering this entire trial, and I hope you guys are going to be down for the ride. And remember, my name is BippyMan. What's up, guys? Let's hop into the video.
Morning, Miss Mitchell.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. So, last night after we left, did you have an opportunity to meet with either one of these prosecutors?
I did not.
You didn't talk to anybody about this case after you left here in court?
No.
So, yesterday we discussed a video that you had taken the morning you dropped Corey off at Christmas house.
Yes.
You said that you had taken that video and that it was accidental, that you had no idea you had taken it. Am I right?
You're right.
Now, on the record examination, you said that as you were driving to Christopher's home, your son was on your phone watching YouTube videos.
Yeah, he would give me my phone back when Christopher texted me and when we got to his house.
Okay, so you're saying that he gave your phone back, you turned off YouTube, and then accidentally hit the camera?
I must have, yes.
Yep. And that's the first time you ever did that?
Yes.
Now, yesterday you also testified that you left community medical center against medical advice because you thought it would be quicker for you to get Corey to Jersey Shore Medical Center, correct?
Yes.
Now, what, this is the show you these, sir. Take a look.
What do you want me to do? You want me to just look at it? Okay. Yes.
Okay. Now, does that refresh your recollection as to why you left Jersey Shore Medical Center?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us what you did? What you told them?
It says, given that she needs to bring her husband, or her child to her husband within the next few hours.
So you didn't leave because you wanted to get to Jersey Shore Medical Center. You left, according to that record, and told people at the hospital that you wanted to take your son to his father.
Yes, that's what I said yesterday. I didn't say it was because I was rushing because I was on limited time.
So, once again, that hospital, Community Medical Center, advised you to not take your child from the hospital.
It says they offered to transfer the patient, and then it also says he gave me the opportunity to leave at the hospital against medical advice.
Against medical advice. So they wanted you to leave Corey at the hospital and have him transported to another hospital. And you said no.
I drove him myself.
Have this mark.
Yeah.
Ma'am? Judge? Yes. Court. I'm sure it's been marked as DA.
Yep.
Is that a release that it says Corey's signature? Did you sign that for Corey?
Yes.
And does that reflect your recollection as to what you signed when you left the hospital?
Yes.
And is that a release
Yes.
saying that they advised you not to take Corey from that hospital and they needed to take him to another hospital?
Yes.
Now, yesterday, I believe we testified. Yeah, right. That there was some point that you lived in Florida.
Yes.
And how long did you live in Florida?
A few years.
Do you remember what those years were?
2015, 16.
And you had Corey with you, right?
Yes.
And your mother and your father, am I right?
Correct.
And what was your father's name again?
Vito.
Now, while in Florida, did there come a point where you...
Objection, Judge. This is really outside the scope. We didn't go into this area whatsoever.
Had to count this on?
Yes, thank you.
Wow. So we find out that Brianna Michelot took the kid against medical advice. Now, she's saying she took the kid because Chris was annoying her and harassing her to come home. She had just lost the full custody battle for her child, so she's probably upset. She probably didn't want to rile any feathers, let's say. But I'm gonna be honest, if I'm a father and my kid is hurt, sick, telling me they're not okay, and we're having custody battle, I barely have any custody, I don't care. The safety of the kid is more important than any court mandate. I don't care what anyone says. So her bringing him back to the so-called abuser is very weird in my opinion. And the fact that after she dropped him off from all this stuff, he ends up dying less than a day later. So that's very odd to me. And I don't know if you guys saw, if you remember from day one, right after this, she hits up her boyfriend for more drugs. It's very odd to me. Let me know what you guys think in the comments.
I do, Judge. Just a few. So, Brianna, on October 28th of 2020, you and the defendant were granted joint custody, right?
Correct.
And previous to this, you did not have custody of Corey. It was your mother.
Correct.
And on April 1st of 2021, you picked up Corey and took him to the pediatrician.
Correct.
And this was during your visitation time with Corey, right?
Correct.
And while you were at the pediatrician or on your way to community medical center, you received the order from the family courts where your application for full custody was denied.
Correct.
So when you received this order, you had already been at the pediatrician.
Yes.
And while you were at community medical center, you actually spoke to the defendant.
Yes.
And you told him that you were taking Corey to Jersey Shore Medical Center.
Right. Yes.
And the defendant actually called the police.
Yes.
And you told the defendant that he could go to Jersey Shore Medical Center.
Correct.
Well, it's leading. It's a little bit leading. I know you're trying to direct your testimony to be less leading. In terms of parties notifying each other about the child, that was a subject on cross-examination to a great extent about the pediatrician visit. So it's permissible in order to provide context to the conversation. So we'll accept the lead nature.
So while you were at Jersey Shore Medical Center, you had a conversation with the defendant.
Yes.
Now, did you offer to bring Corey home back to Barnegat after Jersey Shore Medical Center?
Yeah.
And did the defendant ever respond to your request to do this?
No.
And while Corey was at Jersey Shore Medical Center, was he ever diagnosed with sepsis?
No.
And was Corey medically cleared from Jersey Shore Medical Center?
Yes.
And was there a scheduled appointment for April 2nd for Corey to see a CPC pediatric specialist?
Yes.
And did the defendant cancel this appointment?
Yes.
And could you take Corey to see the specialist without the defendant?
No, he wouldn't allow it.
And when you dropped off Corey on April 2nd, what choice did you have in bringing him back to his father's house?
Well, he already called the cops on me for kidnapping, so I didn't really have any other choice, just for keeping him a few hours late at the hospital.
Can I see the defense? The hearing, so. Do I have permission to approach the witness?
Yes, sir.
Now, Brianna, you took Corey to Community Medical Center, correct?
Yes.
And I'm now showing you what's been marked D7 for identification purposes. And can you read this paragraph in terms of the emergency department course and treatment? The entire paragraph?
Starting here, patient seen.
Yes.
Patient seen and examined in the emergency department. History and physical obtained. Prior medical records requested and reviewed. Initial assessment and exam completed. I had an extensive discussion with the mother at bedside and discussed with her the plan for the patient. I offered to transfer the patient to Jersey Shore Medical Center, where the CPAP specialist as well as his pediatrician were located for further management, evaluation, as well as blood work. I also gave the mother the opportunity to leave the hospital against medical advice and drive her child to the hospital herself. She states that she would rather leave against medical advice, given that she needs to bring her child to her husband within the next few hours.
Okay. And I'm now showing you what's been marked D8. Now, this was a release form that was given to you at Community Medical Center, right?
Yes.
And that's a standard release form that would be utilized regarding any patient who would sign a child out of the hospital.
Correct.
And your purpose, again, of signing Corey out of the hospital would be so he could get there faster.
Correct.
Now, in regard to Justice for Corey, is that a private Facebook group chat?
Yes.
And if you would like to become a member for Justice for Corey, then it would have to be an accepted friend request.
Yes. Objection meeting.
Can you describe the website?
Yeah,
or the
so
Facebook chat?
It's a Facebook group. If you want to join, you have to answer a few questions, and then an admin has to approve you to join the group. And if you want to post, then it gets approved as well.
And do you personally know all the members who are a part of this group chat?
No.
And what was the purpose of setting up Justice for Corey?
To get justice for Corey.
And in particular, there are members who were on this site who had set up donation or fundraising.
Correct.
And can you tell the jurors about that?
The first, so most of it was spent for his funeral, and then the other was spent for a plot for myself in the cemetery with him. So when I pass, I can be buried next to him.
And there was a GoFundMe page set up.
That's what that was.
And what were the expenses for the GoFundMe page for?
That was for the funeral and the plot.
And what about this cash app? Can you explain to the jurors what that was for?
Yes, so members were asking one of the admins if they could help us with just everyday things. So the admin decided to set it up just so people were just saying go get some coffee, go get dinner. They just wanted to help.
And did you set up this cash app?
No.
And who set up the cash app?
One of the members.
And that would be for donations?
Yes.
We don't have any further questions.
Here we go. Did you use any of those donations to buy the fish that you threw at the Gregor?
I did not. No.
Now, you said that you paid for the funeral.
Yes.
Hey, didn't the Gregor family pay for the funeral?
No.
They did?
No, you didn't. No.
So,
I'm sorry.
this Justice for Corey, what's a chat group?
It's a group.
Are you one of the administrators?
I'm one of them, yes.
Who set it up?
I did.
You did.
Yes.
And when you set it up, you set yourself up, I don't understand it, but you set yourself up as the administrator, right?
Yes.
And the administrator is the person that's in charge of the group.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So when you set up a Facebook chat group, you as the administrator set up the rules, right?
Yes.
Okay. And the rules are, like you just told Ms. Lento, are I can let people in if I choose to, or not let people in as I choose to, right?
Right.
And initially, that group was open to the public, right?
For a month, yeah.
Okay. And then,
very beginning.
Okay. And then it was not, became private.
Yes.
And who did that?
The admins made a decision.
Okay.
We had a conversation and decided.
So you were the initial administrator, right?
Correct.
Okay. And now you said that there are additional admins.
Correct.
How many?
There's 2 others.
Okay. And do you know who those people are?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just said you had a meeting with your admins.
Yes.
Okay. And at that meeting, you and your other 2 administrators, I'm assuming that's what you're called, right?
Yes.
Made a decision to make this group private.
Yes.
Okay. So when you say you don't know who's in the group, are you saying that you set rules up on who could get in the group? You have to answer questions?
Yes.
Okay. And if you answer the questions in a way you or the other 2 administrators don't like, then you don't let them in your group.
Correct.
Okay. But if they answer the questions right, then you let them in.
Right.
No further questions.
Nothing further, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you. What's your comment?
Okay.
The testimony about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Have a seat, please. And state your name, full name, and spell for me.
My name is Nancy Deacon, Nancy, Deacon, Deacon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sherman.
Good afternoon, Dr. Deacon.
Good afternoon.
What is your present occupation?
I'm a general pediatrician working in a newborn nursery at in Brick Township at the University Medical Center.
What was required for you to become a pediatrician?
So I first got my Bachelor of Science in nursing, and then I got a Doctor of Osteopathy at the University of Medical and Dentistry of New Jersey, School of Osteopathic Medicine, and that was 4 years. And then I had a 1-year pediatric internship at JFK Hospital in Stratford, New Jersey, and then I obtained my 3-year pediatric residency at Monmouth Medical Center.
Prior to your present employment, where did you work?
I worked with Ivy Pediatrics.
While you were in private practice, very generally, did you do anything else at that time period in the medical field?
Yes, once I finished my residency, I continued to teach residents at Monmouth Medical Center, in addition to teaching rounds and supervising them in their clinic. We also, the clinical psychologist and I brought them to the 180 Turning Lives Around program in Monmouth County that supports domestic families affected by domestic violence. And we brought them to a counseling that we provided for the mothers that had children in shelter.
Okay. Now, prior to becoming a doctor, did you have any experience in the medical field?
Yes. After I got my Bachelor of Science in Nursing, I spent 10 years being a pediatric nurse.
And so you're a DO.
A DO, Doctor of Osteopathy.
All right. Now, what type of practice was Ivy Pediatrics?
It's a general pediatric practice caring for children 0 birth to actually age 25.
And prior to, or how did it come about that you worked for Ivy Pediatrics?
So after I finished my pediatric residency, I worked for West Park Pediatrics for 12 years, and then I started my own pediatric practice, Short Touch Pediatrics, in Toms River, and I had that practice for 12 years, and then I sold my practice to Ivy Pediatrics, and I continued to work for them.
How many, in 2021, how many offices did Ivy Pediatrics have?
They had 5 offices.
And did that include your Toms River office?
Yes.
All right. And how many doctors worked in the Toms River office in 2021?
So I was the primary doctor located in that office. That's the only office I was located in. And then there were other doctors from the practice that covered me on my days off, and there's a physician assistant.
Back in 2021, did you have a patient named Corey Mitchell?
Yes.
Do you recall Corey's date of birth?
His date of birth was 5/1/2014.
Do you remember Corey?
I do.
And how many times had the practice seen Corey?
They saw Corey 3 times.
Out of those 3 times, how many times did you see Corey?
2.
Did Corey have a chart at Ivy Pediatrics?
He did.
Could you tell us what a chart is?
A chart is the medical record of all the visits that we see the patient and any contact with the office that anyone makes with regard to this patient. So anything pertaining.
Is the chart helpful, or does it help you document your observations and assessments of a patient?
Yes, everything is in that chart.
And directing your attention to March and April of 2021, did Corey have an appointment to see you around that time?
Yes, he did.
And prior to seeing Corey, did you review his chart?
I did.
Right. When was his appointment for?
His appointment was for April 1st. I would probably like the chart, just if you're going to ask me about the chart, to have it.
Do you need your chart to help recollect what happened when you saw Corey?
Yes.
And the dates and times?
Yes.
Could I approach the witness?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Deacon, I'm showing you what's been marked for identification as S42. Could you take a look at it and tell me if you recognize it?
I do.
What is S42?
It's the chart for Corey.
And would having that chart aid you in your testimony before the jury today?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I leave the witness with her chart?
No, Judge. Yes, sir.
Do you know what kind of appointment Corey had on April 1st, 2021?
He had an emergency sick visit.
Do you know when your office was first contacted by someone to make that appointment?
Yes, I can tell you now.
Are you referring to your chart?
I'm referring to my chart. And so this was on 3/30/2021.
Do you know who contacted your office on 3/30/2021 for the appointment?
Yeah, the mom called and she spoke to someone in the call, what we call the call center, which is our central message taking center.
Okay. And did anybody else, and I'm going to ask you to refrain from telling me what anybody else said to you, but did anybody else contact your office on behalf of making an appointment for Corey?
Yes.
And who else contacted your office?
DC, P&P.
And what time was the appointment on April 1st, 2021?
The appointment, and I'll refer to when we actually saw him. Was April 1st at 5:18 p.m.
Corey actually came to the appointment.
He came to the appointment.
And was he with anybody when he came to the appointment?
He was.
Who brought him to the appointment?
His mother, Brianna Asciola.
And when he was brought in for the appointment, where was he taken?
He was taken from our waiting area back to where we weigh. We have a weigh and measure station, and then brought into an exam room.
Where did you see Corey?
That's where I saw him, in the exam room.
Did you stay in the room for the duration of Corey's exam?
I did.
And was Corey's mom in the room for the duration of the exam as well?
Yes.
When it came time for you to perform your portion of the exam, other than the weighing and measuring, was anybody else in the room other than the people you described?
No.
And could you tell me what, if any, initial observations of Corey did you make?
So, when I entered the room, Corey was sitting on the exam table. That's where he had been brought to get his blood pressure taken and his pulse and his breathing and his pulse ox. He was sitting there, and the nurse had asked him to take his shirt off. So he had his pants on and shirt off, and he was sitting quietly on the exam table. And his mother was seated in the exam room next to the exam table.
And did you make any initial observations when you walked in of how Corey looked?
Yeah, so as a pediatrician, we rely not just on what patients say, but how they're acting, because they don't, kids don't just tell you something hurts. A lot of times they don't, or they don't. So you're always looking from the very start. How are they sitting? How are they looking? Do they look alert? Are they looking bright? Before we set an eye, even before we touch a patient, we're looking for all the evidence, everything we can get. And he was sitting quietly. He was breathing easily. He didn't look in any distress. And he just looked very serious. And I'd say, kind of contained, like stoic, kind of. Just very sitting.
Did you observe Corey's mom?
And so she was sitting, and she looked just very worried and concerned.
Okay. Did you observe any interaction between Corey and his mom?
Well, he would look at her, and they would just look at each other as I was asking first the mother. Now I'm going to find out from them what is the history, like what's happened, or what are you worried about? So what we call, and she was listed as the independent historian. She was the one to give the history, as parents do, first.
Did you tell Corey anything about his visit with you that day, or the purpose of his visit?
So I do give children a chance to say what hurts or what's the problem or what happened, if it's an injury, how did you get hurt? So I did that, and he at first didn't want to say anything. Shake his head. I don't know. And so I explained to him that in order to help him, I had to know how he got hurt and what happened. And still he hesitated, so I said, Corey, we can't help you if we don't know what happened, and please, and don't worry, because you know, I need to know so I can help you be safe.
And did Corey give you any response?
And so he looked at his mom, and she said,
You can't tell me what anybody else
okay.
said. But did Corey give you a response?
He did. He said that he got the chest and arm and hip bruises and the forehead scrape when he was playing football outside on the turf. And he said that his dad was teaching him how to catch a football. And when I pressed him further, you know, that's a lot from playing football. He said he got more bruises when he fell from a treadmill.
And what was his demeanor while you were speaking with him and he was speaking with you?
Well, as he was explaining this, his mother teared up and started to cry, and then he got tearful as well.
Did you end up conducting an examination of Corey?
I did.
And could you tell me what that examination at first consisted of?
So I reviewed his what the nurses had found out, and he had a normal blood pressure. He had what we call a pulse ox test that tests on the finger his oxygen level. It was 98%. His pulse rate was 90, and his respiratory rate was 24. His temperature was 98.6, so it was normal, no fever. And I considered those vital signs normal for his age.
Did you go on to conduct an examination, like a general one, or ear, nose, and throat, or anything like that?
Yes, and I'm noticing here when I said my first thing is generally just look at them, and you had normal activity and normal interaction. I forgot to, he did tell me that, I don't know, I have something in my notes that you might want to.
Why don't you show it without speaking, so you show it to the strong counsel side. Please.
Wow. So we find out that Brianna Michelot took the kid against medical advice. Now, she's saying she took the kid because Chris was annoying her and harassing her to come home. She had just lost the full custody battle for her child, so she's probably upset. She probably didn't want to rile any feathers, let's say. But I'm gonna be honest, if I'm a father and my kid is hurt, sick, telling me they're not okay, and we're having custody battle, I barely have any custody, I don't care. The safety of the kid is more important than any court mandate. I don't care what anyone says. So her bringing him back to this so-called abuser is very weird in my opinion. And the fact that after she dropped him off from all this stuff, he ends up dying less than a day later. So that's very odd to me. And I don't know if you guys saw, if you remember from day one, right after this, she hits up her boyfriend for more drugs. Just very odd. Let me know what you guys think in the comments.
You can see everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your patience. We're going to continue with testimony of Dr. Keaton. Ms. Shaw.
Doctor, I believe when we left off, I was asking you about the examination of Corey that you conducted. Could you please describe the examination that you performed on Corey?
Yes, so as I said, he had normal activity and alertness, was sitting up without favoring anything. His eyes, when I say eyes, were clear. I looked at the external, everything looked normal. The whites of his eyes looked normal. I looked inside his eyes with a ophthalmoscope and into the back of his eyes, that was normal. I examined his ears, canal, and his tympanic membranes. The canals were clear. His throat was clear. He didn't have any redness of his throat. He had no signs of any viral, when I say viral stigmata, I mean he had no runny nose, no mucus. His neck, he could move it all directions. It was supple, he wasn't favoring it. And he had no what we call cervical adenopathy, meaning he had no enlarged lymph nodes anywhere on his neck. And the other thing that I look for when there's infection is if there's tenderness over the cheekbones, to look at the sinuses, and I checked them and they were not tender, and the other sinuses I palpated and there was no tenderness. I listened to his heart and it was a regular rate and rhythm. He didn't have any murmurs. He had normal heart sounds, and his breathing, I had already observed that he wasn't breathing fast or heavy. He wasn't sucking his, what we call labored, sucking his ribs in, making any effort. He was just breathing normally, quietly. And when I listened to him with a stethoscope, his lungs were clear. And he had what we call good air movement, meaning he had a full breath in and out. And I was particularly interested because some of I was interested in any rib injuries. In fact, I palpated all his, I had him lay down, I checked his abdomen, it wasn't distended. When I say HSMM, he had no enlargement that I could feel of his liver, his spleen, or any masses that I could feel. He didn't guard, because sometimes children don't tell you that things hurt. So I pushed hard, and there was no tightening of his muscles. There was nothing, and I listened to his bowel sounds, and meaning I listened with a stethoscope, and they were normal. So everything was good with his bowels. As far as neurologic, he was alert. When I say oriented ×3, he knew where he was, he knew who he was and who he was with. Checked pupils, their reactivity, and his eye movements, all his cranial nerves. There was no drooping. Everything, when he moved his mouth, there wasn't any drooping. And then I went on to look at his muscular skeletal system. I also I noted all of the findings on his skin. I can talk about them now, or I can complete the rest of the exam and then talk about that.
Could you tell me about the rest of the exam first?
Yeah. So I wanted to make sure he didn't have any injuries to his muscles or bones. So I had him raise his arms up over his head, and he could do that. He could move them every way I wanted. He could. I had him get off the table and walk for me and jump up and down. Without any difficulty, without favoring anything. He had a normal gait. And I checked all his muscles, which for me is he has to hold him out. I've got to push him down. He's got to push me away. Laying down, he has to show me he has good resistance of all his muscles. And so absolutely nothing that I was worried about with his muscles or his bones. He had no swelling. I had him stand on each foot, and he could bear away, because sometimes you even So I made sure he had no problems with that. He had no swelling or warmth, anything that would suggest an infection of his skin, or any no swelling. And when I say no pain, with palpation of his chest, I push on all the ribs and all the bones to make sure that there wasn't any sign of rib or bone tenderness anywhere.
Doctor, were you making a pushing motion with your hands when you did that?
Yeah, so I'm making.
Is that in your rib area that you're
All
holding
the
at?
ribs. I push every bone I can.
And up until that point, what you've testified to so far, did you make any findings or discover any problems?
No, and then I did check his genitalia, and there was nothing, no problems or masses or abnormalities there as well. The abnormalities that I saw were on his skin.
Okay. And did you document that anywhere?
Yes, I did.
Where did you document it?
I have a body, I used a body chart because to be able to show and be able to remember where I saw any lesions on his skin.
Judge, may I approach the witness?
Sir.
Dr. Deacon, I'm showing you what's been marked as S43 for identification. Could you take a look at it for me, please?
Yes,
Okay. Do you recognize that?
I do.
What is that?
And this is my body chart that showed that, and I have written down the lesions that I noticed on his body. It says it was done. I labeled it as 4/1/21 choriomesiola.
And when you say his, you mean Corey's body?
Corey's body, yes.
Okay. And does S43 accurately depict the observations that you made of Corey's body when he was at the visit at your office on April 1st, 2021?
It does.
Okay. Could you take me through the observations that were on Corey's body that you documented, please?
Okay, so I'm going to start at the head and work my way down front side of his body first. Present on his left forehead was what I described as pink granulation tissue with a tiny scab. What that means is that there was dry pink tissue with a little scab.
Doctor, could you just tell me when you point to a body part where you're pointing on your body?
Yeah, I'm pointing to my left forehead. There was a blue-gray bruise over his left cheek, and I'm pointing to the bone right here on his left side of his face. Number 3 was a large yellow-green bruise, and that was located overlying his shoulder, his trapezius, and I'm pointing to my left shoulder right here. 4 was another large yellow-green bruise, and when we have the standing pose, the arms are like this, so it was on the left inner arm.
When you say standing like this,
I was standing with my palms facing forward. The 5th thing that I noticed, or that I wrote down, was a blue bruise present over the elbow. I'm pointing to the inner aspect of the elbow overlying the bone. On 6 was on the right side of his chest, and it was 2 areas of what I called hyperpigmented skin, which was the skin was white compared to the skin around him. So for me, that means that was a healing area of healing skin where it's healed, but the pigment hasn't come back yet. 7 that was my impression. The 7th was a linear scar. When I say linear, I mean like a line, and it was present on the right lower abdomen. Pink, and I called it a scar, pink scar. 8. These were superficial fresh scratches. They were located below the belly button, above the pubic bone, in the center of his body. By superficial, I mean they looked, I called them fresh because you could see that they hadn't formed a scab. There was like a little bit of moistness to them that looked like a scratch that just happened, or could have happened. 9 were blue bruises, and I made 3 circles, and they were located on the left lower leg, the front part of it, overlying the shin. So the area where the bone, you can feel the bone on the lower leg. And then 11 and 10 and 11 were what I described as tiny scratches on the lower front of his ankles, between the foot and the lower part of his leg. Okay, so now located on the back of his body, so he'd be facing this way with the palms. 12 was a large yellow-green bruise, and that was located on the back of his left upper arm, overlying this kind of fatty muscle tissue. And 14 was another large yellow-green bruise, and it was located at the waist. Now I'm talking about this left side, right here, kind of over this upper part of the glute muscle, the soft tissue.
Doctor, are you turning around when you show
I'm
us
turning
that?
around and I'm showing you my back left side.
Is that everything that you have on your chart, Doctor?
That's everything.
Okay. And were those 14
That was
areas of
14.
the body that you described?
Yeah, that last one was 14. Oh, and 13, did I describe 13? Was another bruise located on the elbow, on the back side of the, over that bony process of that arm.
Was that everything you did that was part of your examination then?
Yeah, that, just double check. That was all that was the extent of my exam.
Did you make a plan for Corey before he left your office?
I did. So, assessment is what we do after the physical exam. What is my assessment of Corey? And my assessment was normal bruises, numerous bruises with different stages of healing and healed abrasions with a history of falling on a treadmill and getting hit with a football. Mostly over bony prominences, but some were over soft tissue areas.
What was the plan that you made for Corey?
So for me, there were bruises that you could explain, by the ones over bony processes, with falling, with the play that children do. There's common areas where we have bruises, and then there's areas over soft tissue that it takes more of a blow, more usually, to have that size of a bruise and that kind of injury. That's why I was trying so hard to make sure there wasn't any underlying bone or just because they were so big. And so through my mind is, well, when you have those kinds of bruises, it takes either a bigger, harder force, or he might have a reason why he bruises easily. So I had said I want to rule out any bleeding or clotting abnormality because those children can have extensive bruising as well.
Did you make recommendations for Corey before he left your office?
Yeah, so I told Mom that we needed to bring him he needed to go right to the hospital. That we had to be sure that he wasn't at risk for even worse bleeding, and his blood work. And honestly, from what I learned and what he said and my whole impression of this visit, that he needed further, even if the DCP&P hadn't been involved, I would have called them. But I thought I'll send him to the hospital for further evaluation because he needed more careful evaluation and expert interviewing. That's not my role as a general pediatrician. He needed more care before I would consider him safe to go home.
When you finished with your examination of Corey and making recommendations, did you contact anybody about Corey and your recommendations?
I did. So I called, this is now 5:45, 6 o'clock, it's getting late. And so I call when I have a concern, I had a careful record, but I wanted to also let them know what I was worried about. And so I called the emergency department physician. I had wanted him to go to Jersey Shore, but with time constraints from the mother, she did agree to take him right across the street from my office, not 5 minutes away, with community hospital. So I sent him there. I called the doctor that was going to see him there, and I called Mark, the caseworker from DCP&P, who had asked to be called after my visit to discuss my findings and concerns.
And was that your last personal involvement with Corey Mitchell?
Yes.
I have no additional questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Gucci. How are you, Doc?
I'm okay.
Good? You have some pedigree. Would you agree with that?
I think I have a good education, and
You had a BS in nursing, right?
mm-hmm.
Where'd you get that from?
Wilkes University.
Okay. Then you have a DO, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where's that from?
That's from the University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey, School of Osteopathic Medicine. At least that's what it was called then when I graduated.
And then you got a pediatric internship, right, from JFK Hospital?
Yeah, that DO, we have an internship as part of to get your official DO. So I did that. Yep.
Now, what's the difference between a DO and an MD?
Doctors of osteopathy get additional training in the soft tissue. We're and education about the connection of the mind and the muscles and how everything's connected and influence each other, and how you can treat the whole body and person.
Then you have a pediatric residency, right?
Yes.
And where was that?
That was at Monmouth Medical Center, now the Unterberg Children's Hospital, Monmouth Medical Center.
And then you even taught, right?
And as part of that, I'm a teaching attending there. And I didn't also tell you I was a teaching attending at one time at Jersey Shore as well.
So how long did you teach for?
Well, I continue to teach residents.
What kind of residents were they?
They're pediatric residents.
And how long did you teach for?
I'm continuing my entire career as a pediatrician.
So how many years was that?
So I finished my residency in 95, and I'm still teaching, attending. I'm a clinical assistant professor at Rutgers Robert Wood Johnson Medical Center.
So, go ahead, finish.
Through my work particularly with residents at Monmouth Medical Center.
Now, you're teaching them how to be pediatricians, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're teaching them how to do what you just told this jury that you do, right?
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, you had Ms. Schrein give you the chart, right?
Yes.
So you can review the chart,
Yes.
right? Because the chart is important, right?
Yes.
Okay? And I'm sure when you teach your students, you tell them how important it is to put information into that chart, right?
Yes.
Can you show me in your chart where you talk about what Corey told you, that you needed to encourage him to say that he was reluctant to say that to you, that you needed to prompt him, that you needed to show him he was safe? Can you show me anywhere in that chart when you wrote it, that you wrote those things, that, by the way, I would believe are important in an evaluation by a doctor who's asking about child abuse? Where is it in that chart, in that assessment?
So I did not document exactly what I said to Corey.
And as a matter of fact, 10 minutes before this jury walked into this room, did you testify at a hearing in this courtroom?
Yes.
Okay? And when you testified at the hearing in this courtroom, Ms. Schroen asked you a number of questions about that report. Did she not?
She did.
And did you at any time during that questioning, before the jury was in this room, say anything about that you had to prompt Corey, you had to encourage him, he was reluctant to answer the questions? Did you say that one time?
I thought I said that he was reluctant. When I asked him, he hesitated. I believe that's what I said. He hesitated. I didn't say in the record that he hesitated. I said just what he said.
Well, guys, it seems like this teacher was a little confused. I'm sure this happened so long ago that she could barely remember it. But at first she says that football hurt him. Then she says that probably the treadmill hurt him. She sees different colored bruising on Corey, which is understandable if that treadmill video happened over 10 days ago. So you're going to see different colored bruising, especially on a child of Caucasian descent. But I do still think that treadmill video was brutal, a little more brutal than a 6-year-old should probably go through. But if you do rewatch the video, it's not as bad as everyone's saying it is. The kid really was just running onto the treadmill and falling for the most part. Just the first initial grab when he picked him up was a little bit rough. But I digress. I really do think that this doctor, it was fair. She didn't seem like she had any motive. She seemed like she cared about Corey. She seemed like she remembered most of her interaction with Corey. And it seems like Corey was in decent physical shape. But even she wanted him to go to the hospital. So I need to know if you guys think it was heinous that she signed that AMA. You know. But hey guys, that's it for day 2. Thank you guys for coming out to my channel. Make sure you look for day 3. It's coming soon. BippyMan, I'm out. Bippy.
Bet your sweet Bippy I did.